In Soviet secrecy, a hidden experiment pushed sleep beyond limits and unleashed something terrifying. For decades, the files remained buried beneath military silence until a horrifying story leaked into the world like a forgotten nightmare. You are now entering the world of forbidden mysteries with Amazing Basit, where history, horror, and hidden truths come alive. After World War II, Soviet scientists became obsessed with one terrifying question: how long can a human survive without sleep? 5 prisoners were promised freedom if they survived 30 days inside a sealed chamber filled with an experimental stimulant gas. The first night felt normal. The prisoners laughed, talked softly, and believed freedom was only days away. By the 5th day, the laughter vanished. Endless wakefulness began twisting their thoughts into fear and paranoia. The scientists noticed something disturbing. The prisoners had stopped speaking to each other and started whispering secrets into the microphones. One prisoner suddenly began screaming for hours without stopping, until his voice completely disappeared into silence. Then suddenly, complete silence. For hours, the chamber microphones captured nothing but an empty, terrifying stillness. When the scientists checked the cameras, they froze in horror. The prisoners were hiding together in the darkest corner of the chamber. The researchers discovered shredded books, ripped mattresses, and pages covered with strange messages written in blood. On the 9th day, the scientists ordered the chamber opened, but the prisoners screamed and begged them not to let the gas stop. Their eyes looked hollow. Their skin turned pale, and something inside them no longer seemed human. Then the guards saw it. One prisoner lying motionless on the floor, while the others stared at the corpse without emotion. When soldiers finally entered the chamber, they found pieces of human flesh scattered across the floor. The scientists realized the food supplies were untouched. The prisoners had been feeding on themselves. The chamber doors stood open, but none of the prisoners tried to run. They only demanded more gas. Doctors rushed the survivors into surgery, but the prisoners fought violently whenever anesthesia was prepared. One prisoner laughed during surgery, even while doctors removed shattered organs from his body without anesthesia. The surviving prisoner whispered something terrifying to the doctors. "Please, keep us awake." Even the Soviet researchers started losing control. Some believed the gas had awakened something ancient inside the human mind. Incredibly, the prisoners demanded to be placed back inside the chamber before the gas fully faded from their blood. The guards no longer feared the experiment failing. They feared whatever the prisoners had become. As the steel doors closed again, one scientist realized the true nightmare had only just begun. Inside the sealed chamber, the scientists noticed something new. The prisoners were no longer just reacting. They were observing back. One researcher refused to continue the experiment, claiming the prisoners were speaking inside his mind. Then it happened. A prisoner suddenly charged the glass wall, breaking his own bones in the process. The reinforced glass did not break, but something inside the prisoners seemed to break instead. By the 30th day, the prisoners were no longer acting like humans. They were something else entirely. In the silence of the chamber, a voice echoed that no microphone had clearly captured before. The prisoners began speaking a language that no Soviet linguist could identify, as if something inside them had rewritten their minds. Their eyes never blinked anymore. It was as if sleep itself had become an enemy inside their bodies. Control room alarms screamed endlessly, but no one dared to shut the system down. One prisoner finally spoke clearly, and what he asked for chilled every scientist in the room. The prisoner spoke softly. "We don't want freedom anymore. We want the gas." The researchers realized something terrifying. The experiment had stopped being science a long time ago. It was no longer just a room. It felt like the chamber itself was thinking. One guard refused orders. He swore he would not open the chamber again. And then the system failed. Not the machines, but the people watching it. A sudden command came from higher authority. Terminate the experiment immediately. But no one could agree. Some believed stopping it would be more dangerous than continuing. The prisoners stood perfectly still, as if they were waiting for something to arrive. A special armed team prepared to re-enter the chamber with one final mission: end everything. Before the doors opened, there was absolute silence. Even the machines seemed to stop breathing. The steel doors finally opened, and what they saw made every soldier step back in fear. The chamber was empty, but it didn't feel empty. It felt alive. No bodies were fully accounted for, as if something had taken them beyond human understanding. Within hours, the entire project was sealed. Every file marked never existed. But one question still remains. What did the experiment truly awaken inside them? Years later, a single audio tape resurfaced, filled with distorted screams and unnatural silence. One surviving scientist finally spoke, but refused to explain everything he saw. He said the experiment didn't fail. It succeeded in ways no one could control. According to his words, something stayed behind in the chamber, even after it was emptied. And before he disappeared from public life, he left only one warning: never wake it again. Decades later, a hidden archive file was discovered, marked with one warning: do not open. When researchers played the recovered tape again, they heard something that wasn't human. Experts now believe the experiment didn't just break sleep. It broke the boundary of human identity itself. And in every version of the story, one thing remains the same: silence after the chamber. Some experiments are not meant to be remembered. But if you want more untold mysteries like this, subscribe to Amazing Basit.